Got asked to step down from a position. Years ago, I taught Sunday school on a voluntary basis at a megachurch in my town. There were so many children in this church that classrooms were made available to group children with Sunday school teachers for every year of their life until middle school and high school, at which point they attended a larger group with similarly aged peers in separate wings of the building. I taught 2-year-olds, and loved every moment of it. My classroom boasted a huge number of children, at about 20-25 per service. I was supposed to have an adult co-teacher, but all the other adult volunteers were sent to other classrooms with a higher need. I had 2 high school age volunteers, best friends, who often spent service time playing together, despite repeated approaches to asking them to play with the children. One of my volunteers was the director's son, who I couldn't replace because of his mother, and who clearly did not want to be volunteering. Despite this, and despite inheriting a huge classroom full of several special needs children, my children played calmly throughout service, and enjoyed a routine and simple rules I set to run the classroom efficiently. Children arrived, played calmly, sang songs, ate snack, and went home. Even in the face of this obvious evidence that my classroom was running efficiently, I was repeatedly asked by church leaders to adopt certain mannerisms around children I found inauthentic and frankly patronizing. I don't and won't speak in a high-pitched voice to anyone, child or adult. I don't and won't use words like upsy daisy. These requests were persistent. It was the opinion of the church that I was not warm and welcoming enough. It was modeled again and again that the church would prefer I was over-animated in a huge smile hug I'm so glad you're here kind of greeting. One summer day we were all called, some 50+ room leaders and volunteers, into a mandatory meeting. You know those meetings where you instantly know they're talking about you? The policies on words like upsy daisy were now set in writing, and I was shortly asked to step down for not using these phrases. I was not allowed to prepare my children for the transition to a new Sunday teacher. I was immediately replaced, by a friend, actually, and was fairly crushed about the sudden break from little people I liked spending time with. And furthermore, it made me question my abilities to work with children, an endeavor I had already devoted my life to. Unbeknownst to my church, I had long been working at a career in early childhood intervention, teaching a classroom full of 2-year-old child victims of trauma and abuse with a heavy caseload of special needs children. My co-worker called me over one Monday, as I was the 2's teacher, asking what I made of this email she had just received concerning a church with an out-of-control 2's room requesting that someone come consult with their new staff and help implement some new classroom techniques to manage difficult behaviors. Naturally, I agreed to do the consult in person as soon as possible, and asked my co-worker to let them know I would meet with them on a completely voluntary basis at their next Sunday service. It was absolutely my pleasure to greet my church leaders and friend as their specialist consultant. To their confused surprise, I walked them through all sorts of interventions and strategies I had previously used to create a calm classroom environment and strongly advised against the use of overly excited greetings and phrases like upsy daisy in place of direct, redirective requests. For example, please put your feet back on the floor. It was my strong written recommendation that the written policies on these strategies be amended and for staff to be immediately retrained in accordance with actual therapeutic practices. It was my last time stepping foot in that church, and will forever remain my most deliciously cherished memories of vindication. Love this. Children know when you're talking down to them. Funny that the church leaders didn't. One of the 2 leaders of the childcare division was a retired teacher for a very young age group. She talked to me in a sing-song voice all the time and it really drove me nuts. For some people, that's how they relate to everyone. Her folly was in not valuing how different people relate differently to both kids and adults. I had never criticized other youth leaders for doing things differently than myself. I think a variety of communication styles often makes an organization stronger. And it's important to remember that everyone has a huge commonality in loving kids and wanting nothing but happiness for them. That thought has helped me through a lot of what would have been clashes in teaching styles with fellow interventionists and providers. On an absolutely evil note, it did feel really good to see her frown all through the consult though.